In a world, Kate and Nat sit down, drink wine, and talk about 80s movies.
Oh, no, I wrecked it. I wanted Doc's big awesome thing, but I totally wrecked it. You know what? Next time. We'll pull it off next time.
What'd you do? I heard it.
Yeah, I had the back. Oh, there it is.
What? Hi, everybody. We are so lost.
What?
So Doc made this really cool recording for us listeners where in that movie voice where he's like, in a world where we drink wine and watch 80s movies. And Katie played it, and I don't know if you guys heard it. I heard it. Katie's having something right now.
No, I'm
glitch in the matrix.
Hello everyone, and welcome to what I'm sure is going to be a very messed up episode of the VHS Club. So come with us on this journey. It's because we're wearing our new potato t-shirts.
Potato shirts!
If you're listening, you can't see the potato t-shirts, which means that you just need to join our live studio audience who are here most Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. What I did, and I'm gonna fix it so that we can hear and fully appreciate it. I was monitoring the YouTube video and I left the sound on. So as you were talking, I was hearing everything twice because I was hearing the actual broadcast and me talking to you. And I was like, where is the second audio coming from? But because I am a professional, I've solved the problem. So here, I'm going to pause this for a second. And then I'm going to go down to where Doc says, all right, we're going to be quiet for a sec because Doc just showed up. So now he can hear this amazing intro that I will pull off next week on the show. But here it is here.
In a world, Kate and Nat sit down, drink wine, and talk about 80s movies.
There it is. There it is, friends. We did it. Welcome to the VHS Club. Tonight we are talking about Sleepless in Seattle. If you want a tater shirt, these ones were with Temu, right? This is the path we went down. We don't have branded t-shirts. We're just nerdy.
I was just like, hey, what's this Temu Wish.com thing? And I'm like, oh, they have potato t-shirts. They have nailed their target marketing. Order.
The one person there is like, someone will want a potato t-shirt, and we were like, yes. So.
I feel like they're from some like Japanese emoji things. I remember there used to be these cats. You know what? This is not a rabbit hole we need to go down, guys. Never mind. The movie Sleepless in Seattle.
We are talking about Sleepless in Seattle tonight, which is, I mean, you should know what Sleepless in Seattle is at this point. It's 2023, and this is like one of the most famous romantic comedies of all time. It is Tom Hanks. It is Meg Ryan. It is like every other actor. As I was live watching it and like live messaging Nat and Doc and everyone, I was like, wait a second. Rosie O'Donnell's in this? Wait a second.
Victor Garber
is in this? Hold up. Niles from Frasier is in this. I had all of the moments. So yeah, literally everyone is in this. And because it's Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson is obviously in this. And I did look up this first fun fact of the evening. Rita Wilson was in fact actually married to Tom Hanks at the time of this filming. And she actually wanted to play Rosie O'Donnell's character, the kind of like fun, snarky best friend. I don't think she would have done as good a job as Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell killed it, this role. Yeah.
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 I miss Rosie on my big screen, you know? Like she was really
Yeah.
she had a
Yeah.
lot of good movies in the 90s
Yeah.
especially.
90s Rosie O'Donnell movie star was just like, yeah,
Awesome. Yeah.
goals. Goal-
Yep.
goals. Goals throughout. All right, I'm going to try to give as brief a possible summary of this movie as possible, twice possible, because we want to just dive into all of our feelings and thoughts and feelings about this movie. So the premise of this movie is that Meg Ryan is engaged to be married to Bill Pullman.
Oh, not Bill
Matt and
Paxton.
I both almost thought that it was Bill Paxton and then went down a rabbit hole there. So it
I
is Bill
just got
Pullman.
confused. I was like, "Oh, Bill Pullman died. It's so sad to see him." I'm like, "Wait a second. I need to Google that because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong." Bill Pullman is alive.
Bill
Everybody,
Pullman
he's
is
fine.
alive. If you were like us and you were very concerned,
Oh
Bill
man.
Pullman is alive. So she's supposed to marry Bill Pullman's character, Walter. He is the most boring person known to man. You kind of feel bad for him, but also you don't want her to marry him. So she's in this like bad relationship. And meanwhile, Tom Hanks's character has just lost his wife and is like the nicest possible man. He is what we now think of as Tom Hanks, and he has a young son. And the young son calls a radio show. For those of you who don't know what a radio call-in show is, a radio talk show, which many an hour was spent driving in cars listening to the radio talk shows. But he calls in the talk show and tells the host that his dad is really sad and needs to have a new wife, girlfriend, and everyone is listening to it, including Meg Ryan. And she, in true Katie fashion, goes down an obsessive compulsive must know everything about this man. I think I might be in love with this man, even though she's engaged to this other guy.
She is also a journalist.
She is a journalist.
And has been asked more than once to write a story about this.
It's true, but she goes fully obsessively into it, which is just my personality wrapped up into Meg Ryan. So yeah, she goes all the way into it. Her best friend, Rosie O'Donnell, who is also a colleague, is like all in helping her go all into it. And
sounds very us.
Very us. She writes a letter that she isn't going to send, but Rosie O'Donnell sends anyway. And she says that in the letter that she wants to meet him at the top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day. And
their favorite movie is An Affair to Remember.
And
they're supposed to meet on the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, absolutely. This like... And of course, you know, hijinks ensue, and they do end up meeting at the top of the Empire State Building because Tom Hanks's son is as obsessive and committed to this as the rest of us are, and so they end up getting all the way there, and it ends in this very like warm your heart yes kind of moment. So that is the entire movie. I will say off the bat that one, I visited the Empire State Building when I was in grade 10 on a school trip, and my entire motivation behind wanting to go on this school trip was to go to the Empire State Building, and the entire reason behind that was to be Meg Ryan. so I don't, and I would like to ask you and the live audience, because I have this memory in my mind that it has now been moderately debunked by my research today for this show. So I remember going to the Empire State Building, the lobby accurate to the movie, like the top of the Empire State Building accurate to the movie, but when they're leaving at the very, very end, the elevator doors like close, and it's like the outline of the Empire State Building. I don't remember that being there in the actual Empire State Building when I went, and I remember being lividly upset about it. Like, what the heck? This isn't the Empire State Building. And rewatching it again tonight, I was like, oh, maybe I was just like wrong. I remember being like really upset about it. But then I did a bunch of research, and they did film they got special permission to film at the Empire State Building, but not all of it. They didn't film the top part. They actually filmed in a sound studio. So maybe I'm right, and my visceral reaction is actually correct. So yeah, definitely. If you know the Empire State Building, let us know.
I was there also in the 90s. The one thing that I like, and the reason I'm sure they had to film it in a sound studio is because it's very, very windy up there.
Yeah, it
Like,
wouldn't be
that's
good
the
for
one
audio.
thing I remember walking out of the elevator and being like, whoosh. I'm like, there's no way they filmed this movie up here. Because it's so windy.
Yeah, they
And
did
it's not
not.
in the movie because her cute little hairdo is cute and does not get all messy.
No,
So
it doesn't get messy. It
no,
doesn't
it
get
does
messy.
not.
But yeah, that was my I like waited in. I have not rewatched this one in a while, so this
A
was like a
long
really
time.
great
Yeah.
rewatch for me. But I the entire time I was just like, I'm waiting to get to the Empire State Building, and as I was like watching it, I was just like, I want to go back to the Empire State Building. Is it correct? Will I be equally upset? So yeah, so I don't
There's a
know.
lot less people. I love that, like, the kid, Tom Hanks, and Meg Ryan all just, like, walked in and walked to the elevator, didn't wait in line for 3.5 hours to get up to
True.
the top.
True.
And it was not at all crowded. And the kid could just go up to people and he's asking, "Are you Annie? Are you Annie?" And everybody could hear him because it's apparently not windy.
And everyone was just like, "No, nice to see you." And I was like, "This is New York." I also I also felt like the moment where she gets to, I know we're starting at the end first, but these are our moments. But she gets to, Meg Ryan's character gets the Empire State Building. It's already closed, and they tell her that she can't. The elevators are closed, which is accurate. The elevators do close at there's a closing time to the Empire State Building. But
Yes.
she gets up there, and then like she goes up to this like adorably kind older security guard who's like, all right, because you and my wife have the same favorite movie. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, if this was actually New York City, he'd be like, no. Like, we'll see you tomorrow. It just was like not gonna happen. Oh no, George. So George, who's in our live studio audience, shout out to George, says that he is a native New Yorker, but he's never been to the Empire State Building. We're gonna have to go as a VHS club all together so that we can have our moment of like, do those doors. If they don't in real life, they should fix that. Like they should really fix it.
They could have just renovated. Like it looked like it was a decal, right? Like it could have just.
If it's not, it should be. The doors the doors like going when you're in the lobby, the elevator doors that go up, those doors are this like very art deco cool 20s vibe that is like reminiscent of the building but is not like the shape of the building. So that like when you Google search, if you're crazy,
exterior doors.
if you're crazy and obsessive like Meg Ryan's character and me, then you would have automatically Googled Empire State Building elevator door pictures and then spent like an hour going through all of the door pictures. But all of the door pictures are of the lower level. I could not find any of the top level. And there was just like no way to solve.
Oh well, we'll have to go.
We're gonna have to go. So that's the answer. None of this is movie trivia, but now you're really well informed and wondering like I should go back to the Empire State Building.
So one of my favorite moments, there's a few in this movie, but I love when he's out with one of his friends in Seattle. So he lives in Seattle and she lives in Baltimore. And when he's in Seattle, he decides, okay, you know what? I was on this radio talk show with this psychologist and, maybe I should start dating again. So he's asking one of his buddies, like, about dating and what dating's like. And I love it. He's like, oh, wait till you find out about tiramisu. And he's like, what's tiramisu? It blows my mind to think like how, like, it's weird to remember, but like things like we didn't have a lot of culture or multiculturalism, like access to multicultural foods in the 90s or 80s, early 90s. I can't remember.
People didn't know what tiramisu was. Do you want to know an embarrassing?
Which blows my mind because I'm like, in Montreal, there's like a little bit of every culture. It's like you walk down the street, you'll hear like 50 languages. So I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what tiramisu is? It's so weird.
So embarrassing fact from my end. I heard that line, and in my mind, I thought that Rob Reiner's character was making a funny joke. Like what I thought
like a euphemism.
Euphemism. I thought he was talking about like Kama Sutra and just thinking it was called tiramisu. And I like literally looked up like a fact about it because I was like, oh, that's so funny. We should talk about that on the show. And then I was like, oh, I was just horribly wrong. There's no information on this. But then there was information about, I guess, after the movie came out and obviously was like wildly popular and continues to be wildly popular, Rob Reiner still has people like send him tiramisu, ask him about tiramisu. Like he's like regrets saying that line. Like people now are like all in for tiramisu with him, which is kind of incredible.
That's pretty cute. Well, Tom Hanks makes that assumption too, because he doesn't know what it is. He's like, well, you have to tell me what it is, because what if she asks me to do it to her and I won't know what it is?
Oh, that's a good point. True. I didn't get it from nowhere. That's a good point.
No, it didn't come out of nowhere.
Okay, good. I was like, I feel like I misunderstood that line. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we were talking before the show started, and we should talk about it now that we're live, but it's this movie holds up. I feel like this is always kind of our
Yes.
conversation point in all these different episodes is like, okay, we're going back in time. Like how dicey and or problematic is this movie going to be? Not that is entirely what this show is about, but we're covering it in some way.
Yeah.
This one,
but we didn't really have to
isn't.
put it in historical context other than like, call-in radio shows and using a Rolodex, not having cell phones. Other than that, but yeah, I first turned it on today. I was like, oh no, I really hope there's nothing majorly problematic in this. I'm like, not Sleepless in Seattle. And it was really good. It holds up. I was very happy.
Yeah.
It was a good rewatch.
Holds up really well. I loved the relationship between Tom Hanks and his son in this movie.
Yes.
So Jonah and Sam. I just thought, and it's funny because Tom Hanks actually, like, there were a number of articles that talked about how he didn't feel as though that relationship was realistic because the film was written by a woman. He was just like, he didn't think it was well written. But and maybe because I'm a woman. So if you're a man and you're watching this or listening to this, let us know if you felt like it wasn't a realistic relationship. But
like he wouldn't talk with his kid, or
I don't know. I really liked it. Like there's this scene,
like he wouldn't have a relationship with his child being a single
No,
parent?
I think he felt like it didn't go like deep enough, or didn't like. I think he didn't think it came across as like a realistic relationship. Like maybe the dialogue or something about it wasn't realistic. But I really liked the relationship. I especially love that he was very. I feel like he spoke to his kid as if he was like an adult, not an adult. That's not the right way to put it.
But
like,
baby.
Yeah, didn't treat him like a baby. Didn't
Yeah.
baby him at all. Like was very, very honest with him. Which like as a parent in this generation, I feel like my generation who are raising kids, that tends to be the approach. It's like, okay, we're just going to be honest with our kids. We're not going to we're not going to sugarcoat things or lie to them about anything. Like we're just going to tell it as it is. And it felt like he came across that way, and it was like nice to see. Like it felt. Their relationship to me felt very modern, actually. Like it didn't feel like a 90s. Maybe that's what he was speaking out against, but it didn't feel like a 90s relationship at all.
There was another thing at the beginning of the movie after his wife passes, and his boss, they lived in Chicago. So his boss at whatever firm he was working at is like, oh, here's the number of my therapist. Like you should really talk to somebody. Looking back at it, I was like, oh, that's pretty like today modern. Like that's not something that people really focused on or talked about. Especially I find with my perception is like with men, it wasn't something that you did. Like you didn't go to the doctor unless you were dying. You didn't need to talk to anybody. You just sucked it up kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I thought that also was kind of ahead of its time, but maybe it's because it was written by a woman.
Maybe it was because it was written by a woman. Maybe it was
super unrealistic.
The one part that I didn't love, and I sent you a note about this, is that I felt like, and part of it was just sort of I think jokingly and playing into the, you know, to the storyline itself. But like his, at one point where he makes this decision that he doesn't want to live in Chicago anymore. There's like too many painful memories. He wants to move, you know, he wants to make
ups and leaves
a
and
drastic
moves across
change.
the country.
I mean, he is an architect, so technically he could get work. So he could work anywhere. Like he could easily find another job somewhere else. It's not like he has a difficult kind of career where he needs to stay there. So that part was believable. But I love that like Rita Wilson, who is his real life wife playing his sister, which feels and looks weird to me, but that aside, she tells him, they're like walking in the airport and his wife has been dead for like months. Like it is not that low. Like he's leaving because of the triggering memories, and she's like telling him that he needs to start dating right away, and like she's like all in for the and even like after that, it's been like they say it's been a year and a half since his wife has died, and he's on that radio show, and everyone is like you should be dating again, like you should find someone else, like, you should like,
why haven't you started dating?
Like they come across as if he like just needs to straight up replace his wife, and I was like, I don't like, this feels a little weird. Like this feels a little soon. Like maybe we can let him like grieve in the way and with the time that he wants to. Like it felt a little much.
You know, like give him the time and the space to work out his now very different relationship with his kid before he figures out a relationship with a complete other person. Is at the beginning of the movie, after the funeral, you see Rita Wilson is telling him like, okay, so like there's a whole bunch of food for you, like all in Tupperwares and putting in the freezer. You just stick it in the microwave for whatever minutes. And then she asks him, do you know how to make juice? So it implies that he like kind of wasn't super involved in the parenting before. So
it is a stereotypical nuclear family in the 90s. The men did not do any of these kinds of things, which is not true. They absolutely did, but that was definitely the stereotype. That was like, you know, he wouldn't be able to cook for himself. He wouldn't be able to do any of these things. He needs to find another woman now. is the message. But I would say, other than that side of it, which I mean, totally fair for the era it comes out of.
When she's in the airport and she's like, you should start dating again. I don't know why I said that. Like, so she does kind of backtrack. She kind of, you could see she was like, I'm just freaking out because you're up and leaving to the other side of the country. So she was just kind of like, no, stay and date somebody instead. You know, like just, it seemed, I got it more as like, yeah, it's ridiculous that he should date like 2 months after his wife died. But also I kind of got it. She was just panicking. You know, that he was just like making a brash decision to up and leave. So
yeah. And I do love like to counter that, on the other side you have Meg Ryan, who's like making this decision that even from like the very first moment you meet her is like clearly not the right decision. She's like, you know, engaged to this guy who's like, she's not all that into. She doesn't have any kind of like fireworks feelings for him. He's very safe. And she goes and talks with her brother, I believe, or brother-in-law, I think is her brother, played by David Hyde Pierce, right? David Hyde Pierce, Nigel Fraser. And anyway, she goes and talks with him, and I love the line where she's like, you know, she's going back and forth with him, and she's like, you know, asking basically like how do you know if you're really in love with someone? Like, how do you know if you really should marry someone? And she's like, why did you get married? He says that his wife said they either had to get married or break up, so they got married. And I was like, this is like both funny and so accurate to so many relationships that I've seen in my life, that it was like, it's a nice kind of, I feel like, and I know Nora Ephron was like fabulous at this, and this speaks to just, you know, again, like really solid screenwriting and really solid directing. But this is a story that's like incredibly character driven, which I think is what makes this movie so timeless and makes it so like lovely. Like I feel like you can, no matter what your personality type or like what background you're from, I feel like you can relate to at least one of these characters as they're trying to figure out what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to navigate relationships, you know, as adults. And the line that comes up like over and over again, where, you know, the men are always like, it's, you know, it's more likely to be hit by lightning than it is to find love over the age of 40. Like it's all these like cliches about relationships and all these talking points that happen all the time. Oh, I'm being corrected justifiably. So it is David Hyde Pierce, and it's Miles, not Nigel. I'm messing up my Frasier. I need to rewatch Frasier. That's been on my list for a while too.
It's a fantastic rewatch. Also, I
believe
rewatched
it
it
is.
during lockdown. It was
Niles. That's it.
amazing.
Niles. I was like, I don't think it's Miles, George.
Miles.
No, we've got it. We've got it. We're fully back in the 90s. We're good. We're good. Niles. Also David Hyde Pierce. I was close. I was almost correct. Sort of there.
So one thing I find interesting with this movie, it's like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan had this epic chemistry that we speak about today because of this movie, yet they share like two or three scenes together.
Yeah, like minutes together on screen. Yep.
Barely. Like they only technically meet at the end of the movie. And I thought that's interesting how like we built it up. So like it really didn't matter, like their casting and their chemistry didn't matter as much as how they played their character,
Yeah.
like it was their acting ability, their characters that really made us fall in love with all of them in the whole thing. So
yeah,
that's
well, again, they're almost like they're building up all of these characters independently. Like you said, they're not in the same city, they're not in the same scenes, but they just seem to click. Like they're having similar kind of experiences. Again, there's kind of like all these cliches about love and romance and dating and marriage and all of them are at kind of different places, and they're all, it's all surrounding these two characters who, like you said, are not together at all. And then you have in the middle of it this like absolutely adorable kid who's just like played so brilliantly. Like he just does such an amazing job with that role, which is hard for, I don't even know how old he's supposed to be. He's younger than 12 because they say at one point that he isn't 12 when he buys his illegal plane tickets across the country. But yeah, I just think he, like,
kids always running off to New York in the 90s.
Yeah, right. His vision for all of it is just awesome. I love that scene. I love the scene of I love that his character is friends with Gabby Hoffman. It like took me back to Now and Then again. I was like, yes, Gabby Hoffman. And I love that, like, I love their relationship. Like I love that they are the hopeless romantics. Like this movie is all about, like, it is all about perceptions of romance. It's this like wonderful, Doc says it really great. Like this movie was written to appease hopeless romantics, right? It's all about hopeless romantics. And then you have the kids who are echoing everything that they see in movies
around
and see their adults, right? Like they just want it to work out. Like, and she's like, and both these kids like just want it to work out all the way through it. It's really, it's very sweet and it's very layered. And I think it from start to finish was just really brilliantly done.
Yeah, lost the thought. Oh, COVID brain.
Do you know what's fantastic? And maybe this will make you remember again. So I was going through like all of the fun facts. One of my favorite things about watching this right now, which and all of you will probably like roll your eyes, like, how did you not know this in 2023? I normally watch movies on my television. I like to like be in my space, and I go in and out. But I like tangible DVDs because I am old and I like watching it on my TV. But this time around, I was late in actually getting around to watching it, and so I was watching it like on the go. So I was on my computer, and I was watching it through Amazon Prime. And I don't know if this exists on TV, but on Amazon Prime, fun facts, movie facts and trivia slide in from the left. And like, as the scenes are happening, which you can turn on or off, but I was like, this is glorious. And so, and it included like trivia about the actors and about like the movie itself, as well as all of the, I forgot what they called them. I don't think it was spoofs. It was like, it's like accidents that like things that they just left in the movie that like are actually just incorrect. So like, like when you see like, you see something in the movie and like a glass moves like in the next scene. So it's like not in the same place that it was, or like, because of the takes. Right. And what I loved at one point, and it's not even one of those like weird like mistakes in the movie, but the scene where Gabby Hoffman's character, so she's the kid that Jonah like gets help from to run away
Yeah.
to New York City.
His little best friend.
His
Yeah.
little best friend. They go, Tom Hanks's character goes over to like find out where his son is, right? His son is missing and he's like beside himself, and he goes over to their house. They're both travel agents. They get in their living room and there are like 100 clocks on their mantle. Like their whole mantle in the background in their living room is just clocks.
I didn't notice.
And the slider was like, that came in was just like, maybe this was meant to be because they're travel agents and like it's like all different time zones, but all of the clocks are set to the same time. So it's just like, it was like, but why though? Like why is this? And that's it. George is saving the day today. Continuity issues. So they're all the continuity issues, which it's funny. Like I read afterwards a lot of the time, but then I've just seen the movie, so I don't go back and kind of see where they are. So it was actually really nice watching it on Prime because it told you them as they was happening. And I was like, oh, I should find out a way to see if this is possible on my TV, which it probably is, but George will tell me in a minute. And then I'll know for sure. But yeah, the clocks were absolutely amazing. And then the other one I really enjoyed, which was not a continuity issue, but just a mistake. So, and I don't, as we know on the show, I didn't catch any of these things. I was told all of these things. But Meg Ryan's character at the very beginning of the movie, she's bringing home Walter, her fiance, to announce to her family that she's engaged. And she's like really excited to talk to her family all about him and you know, talk him up and show how amazing he is. And so he comes in and they're over dinner over Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve dinner. They're talking all about all the things he's allergic to. He's allergic to like literally everything. He's allergic. And so in that he says he's allergic to strawberries, he's allergic to wheat, and like a bajillion other things. And then later she's with her mom up in the attic and she's trying on her grandmother's wedding dress. And it's like this really beautiful scene between mother and daughter. And they're talking about the wedding. And her mother asks how they met. And she tells this story about sandwiches. And she says that they ordered the same sandwich and his was on white bread and hers was on wheat. It's like, but he wouldn't have eaten the white bread because he's allergic to wheat. And wheat is in both white bread and wheat bread. Like it exists in both those breads.
Did gluten-free bread even exist in the 90s?
No, but it was just like,
I
just love it. I was like, oh wow, Amazon. Things I would never notice on my own.
Could we talk about
Yes.
So her parents are meeting her boyfriend for the first time Christmas Eve.
Yep.
She kind of implies, like, he asks, like, do they know about me? Like, they don't even know how they met. And the first thing she's doing is like, we're engaged.
Yeah.
What?
It's because she's so old, Nat.
Yes.
Keep in mind, she's in her 40s. So she's very, very old. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know.
She's not in her 40s in this.
That was weird. No?
Is her character supposed to be? There's no way. She looks like...
I felt like because of all of the lines about how women over the age of 40 like are basically dead, that I assumed that she was in her 40s or about to be in her 40s.
People are just peer pressuring her to get married. And also, men still use that line.
Yeah.
Like, it's statistically impossible to get married over the age of 40. I'm like, get stuffed. But anyways, it's just, I found it wild that her mom didn't even know how they met, and she's like, "We're engaged."
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
That part was definitely crazy. I mean, all of the parent and Bill Pullman plays this so brilliantly, but he's so cringy to watch, and all of the scenes with him are so cringy to watch. Like how the parent, like how her whole family like interacts with him, like how they are interacting with each other. Like it's so awkward. I guess it's like really reminiscent of like how all of it is just so superiorly awkward. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I found it he was really good at playing that sort of awkward, allergic to everything, sort of like fumbling. Are we all right? Sorry for our listeners. Katie's camera tracks her movements, so she moved. The camera moved as well. We're going on a trip, guys.
Yeah, we're going on a trip.
But yeah, he was really good, and it's funny because he's been the romantic lead in a lot of stuff. So even when the movie came out, I was like, "Wait, but then how does Tom Hanks come into this? Because like he's the romantic lead guy, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
But he's so like, I don't know if you felt this way, but I like, it's so well written and well acted that at no point, at no point was I then and now, not even that she's going to end up with him, at no point, like, do I think it's inappropriate for her to have been like, I'm going to like follow this story and learn more about this other guy that I'm like not really in love with, but like maybe I want to just see if I'm in love with, but I'm not in love with because I'm in love with it. Like she's stepping very close towards fully cheating on her fiance, but at no point like in the movie does it feel like, do you feel bad for him or do you feel like you just, like you said, you know that they're never going to work out. So it's this kind of like moment where it feels all right. Like if it had been written any differently or acted any differently, I feel like you'd be like, oh, like she should just break up with him if she's having all of these feelings and like, and then, you know, and then pursue, like, even if it's ridiculous. Like I know that it's like this ridiculous story,
societal
but
pressure of like being female and having to get married.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and it's like I find it was probably a lot worse then than it is now. But yeah, she kind of was keeping her sure thing on the side while trying to explore her, you know, her silly, hopeless romantic side. Which I'm like, we're allowed to be romantic. Like, you don't have to pick and choose. You don't have to pick reality or pick romance. Like, there's no and or in this situation.
Yeah. Which is kind of, which I think this movie did, again, like really well. So as you were saying, it like, it's telling, it has elements of An Affair to Remember, which is like in this movie, every woman's favorite movie, which is adorable. But then you have Tom Hanks's character and Victor Garber's character who like have this jokey, ridiculous response to Rita Wilson. You know, where Rita Wilson's like telling this storyline of Affair to Remember and she can't even like keep it together. She's like crying. It's like her favorite movie. It's so beautiful.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. And then you have this response from the guys who like are speaking the same way about like their favorite like
action movie
guy movie, right? And that whole scene was actually improv. Like they just started doing that as a response, but it's so well done as like a response where it's like everyone has like these moments where they just want to be ridiculous and swept away by things, and it's like I think it's really great. Yeah, Doc says this movie gave people permission to explore their options. Yeah, it's so true.
Instead of being trapped.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I wish that there was something like negative I could say about this one, but I just think it's really well written from start to finish.
I think we should bring back Rolodexes.
We should absolutely bring back Rolodexes.
So much fun. There's something so satisfying. And for our listeners who don't know what a Rolodex is, Google it, but just look it up. It's basically like a phone book, but it's on a wheel and it has cards and you just like could flip it. And it was just so satisfying to use.
Yeah. Rolodexes were great. And the pull down map of the United States, I was like, I really want one of those in my house. Like the amount of times that Tom Hanks references this map, he's like, we are here. Where are all these other places? Way over here.
Who has that in their house, though?
I don't know, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
Other than just being a little sassy to your like 10-year-old kid, what's the point of having one?
Yeah, I think that was great. Oh, I need to mention this fact. So there's a whole, I mean, unsurprisingly, there's a ton of fun facts in this movie, but one of my favorites is that so there were a whole bunch of actors and actresses that were up for playing these roles, and like it definitely was not going to be these two actors until like basically the very end. But one of them, so hilariously, Meg Ryan was actually up for the leading role in Pretty Woman. And Julia Roberts was up for the leading role in this movie. And they just ended up in the opposite roles. And I just can't quite wrap my head around what that would have been like for those movies. Like
Julia Roberts gave up this, like, she turned this movie down to take Pretty Woman.
Yeah. And
she's like, no.
And I just like,
which I'm glad she did. Cause
yeah,
that's
exactly.
also phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, both are phenomenal movies, but I just feel like Meg Ryan is she's got this like very natural, almost like girl next door, like beauty and vibe where she's like gorgeous and fun loving and like very self-effacing. And like, I don't know. I know that like Julia Roberts is somewhat known for that, but I just feel like Meg Ryan played this so like authentically and perfectly that I just can't even begin to imagine. And I also can't imagine her in Pretty Woman. Like Pretty I can't, Woman. Yeah, I just don't think she could have pulled that off.
It worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So from when I was reading up on it, it seemed that this movie was rewritten and reworked quite a few times, and it took a very long time to put together.
Yep.
End result, great. So, so she was attached to it from what I understood pretty early on.
Yep.
And then they didn't have the male lead attached. So they went through like a whole bunch of people, including her then husband, Dennis Quaid, which would have been wild. Because then we would have missed out on Tom Hanks.
I know in this movie, and probably it's my age and the time that it came out, but this movie is like, this is Tom Hanks to me. And I'm saying this as someone who in past episodes raved about how much I love That Thing You Do, which I absolutely do. Yes. But this movie is like stereotypical Tom Hanks to me. Like he was like, you know, there's a ton of other ones, but in my mind, when I think of him, this is the movie that I think of. And I mean, and same with her to some extent. I mean, probably like close tie with When Harry Met Sally. But it's just like, I don't know. It's funny. Like you said, the chemistry that they have, given how like little they are on screen together, is fantastic. Yeah. And it's funny because when they did You've Got Mail later, which brought these two actors back together, it isn't the same. Like, it's a good movie. It's cute, but it's like,
I don't remember liking that one.
It's not. Yeah, it doesn't.
I actually had this conversation today.
They don't have the same chemistry. So it's
kind of like a bad person in that movie. Like, he lied to her pretty much the whole time is the vibe that I remember from You've Got Mail. So I need to rewatch it because I remember not liking it.
But yeah, it's funny because that one, they're like together a bunch in it. And I wonder if like, if that almost breaks like the magic. There's something about, so maybe it's not their chemistry as actors. It's actually just the characters. It's the like,
no, that's what I more meant before was like, it didn't matter if they had chemistry or not.
Yeah.
You know, because it didn't, like, they didn't need to interact. It's how, like, they needed to make us fall in love with their character. And they made us believe that they would end up together. But the two characters, like, the actors didn't need to have any, like, in-person chemistry, really. You know? So it was, it's interesting. It's weird. It's, like, an interesting way to make a movie, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well,
Kim Basinger was also up for this part.
I know there were a lot. I mean, it's funny, you know, every one of these movies that we do as we dive kind of deeper into the facts behind them or the research behind them. It's always like we have come across very few movies so far where it's been like, nope, that was the person like all the way through. Like these ones are always have this very surprising list of actors and actresses that were supposed to have the role. And I'm always like, huh, really? Yeah. It's fun to take like a moment and be like, what would that film have been like? Because again, this one would have been a very different movie with like, I just can't wrap my head around anyone else. I mean, in almost all of these roles, honestly, like there were other kids that were up for playing Jonah's role. There were other adults that were up for playing all these roles. And I just like every actor, no matter how small, was just fantastic in this. Like
I definitely couldn't see Dennis Quaid in this because he was like more of a grittier actor. Did a lot of like, he did The Big Easy. He did like movies that were, you know, more violent and more like, he wasn't a rom-com kind of guy, you know. So more of like an action sort of person. It definitely wouldn't have. Yeah, we needed Tom Hanks. That's basically it.
We needed Tom Hanks. Yeah, we needed Tom Hanks. We needed Meg Ryan. It couldn't have been anyone else. It had to be the two of them. All right. Well, if you are in our live studio audience, we've come to the time of the show where you need to let us know if you've seen this movie, which I'm assuming all of you have. And if you liked it, how many potatoes would you give? Even if you're not wearing your fancy potato shirt like the rest of us, you need to show us and tell us how many potatoes you would give this. It probably shouldn't come as a surprise that we would give this all of the potatoes because we just raved about how good it was for the last 45 minutes. But here we are with our you got to see this if you're listening. We actually show the potatoes on screen, and this time around we have them rolling in because we're fancy this time. Watch.
Yes.
Rolling in just like that. Yeah. Paul says five potatoes, just like us, 5 potatoes for this one. Again, this is just an iconic movie. Again, we've talked a lot about, like what's your favorite movie, and Nat and I both struggle to have like one favorite movie. This one's definitely got to be in the top whatever list because
I remember very specifically you being obsessed.
I was
with this
obsessed
movie
with this
for
one.
decades.
Yeah, and I watched it.
I liked it a lot, but you were obsessed with it. Like how the women in the movie were obsessed with An Affair to Remember. You were obsessed with Sleepless in Seattle.
I do also really like An Affair to Remember, but I have not seen that one as often as this. Doc says that all Meg movies are 5 potatoes with gravy. George has got 5 potatoes here. Yeah, I love
it.
And
was
I love
so well written. I think
love
for
that
me,
the men
really
in this studio audience are also as into this movie as we are. I wish
we're
that they
into
would
some rom-coms.
Yeah, I wish that they would bring back. They're starting to get a little bit better at this, but I wish that they would bring back like this vibe of rom-com where they're just like, I don't know. There's like again, like kind of just an authenticity to this movie that I think is hard to pull off.
Yeah.
It doesn't come across as like vapid or trying too hard or too Hallmark movie-ish or too like it.
Dear Lord, those are getting bad.
Yeah,
The
right.
Hallmark
Like it
movies,
isn't.
they're so bad.
It's like romantic without making fun of romance movies, and I think that that's really hard to do. And so
it's the golden age of rom-coms.
It's the golden age
90s.
of rom-coms. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna watch them all again. You can come with us on this journey. We'll try to mix in some fun action movies on the way. I think.
Well, we're gonna have to spice up because it's spooky season.
It is almost spooky season, so we probably have one more non-spooky, and then we're like all into spooky.
I'm like, I don't know, it's already spooky season.
That's like
in my
all
world.
in on spooky. All right, well maybe next week we have to do a
if
spooky
I have
movie.
to wear a sweater, it's spooky season. Mind you, tomorrow it's supposed to be like 25 degrees Celsius.
Celsius, hot
Somebody
for
else.
those who don't know what that is. Yeah, someone I can't translate it, but I can tell you it's hot. Oh my gosh.
Quite warm for end of September, but
exactly. Well, thank you to everyone for hanging out with us. And if you are listening or watching this later, thank you so much for finding us and checking us out. Please leave a review and share with a friend and tell everyone why you like this show and that you like this show. And send us your movie recommendations. It takes us a while to get to them because there's like a bajillion movies that came out in the 80s, 90s, and today, quote unquote, because that's where we're living now. But yeah, let us know. We have an awesome movie list that you can find in the show notes or in the description. You can see what we're working on and what upcoming movies we've been thinking of, but we want to hear what you are too.
yes.
Yeah, and we'll be back again for our live studio recording next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, unless something comes up, and then maybe a Wednesday or a Friday because we just like to keep people on their toes. That's how we roll.
Admittedly, last week Kitty and I ditched because we went to Stratford, Ontario for the Stratford Festival, and I do have to update you guys. We saw Paul Gross.
We did.
A Canadian national treasure / the Mountie from Due South in the 90s, and as King Lear, and I think and I quote from Katie, "I'm in shock. I'm not sure what just happened. I'm in shock."
I couldn't process the play.
Paul Gross up close.
I couldn't process the play because I was too distracted by the fact that Paul Gross was very, very, very close to my face, and I thought maybe he could see me, even though I knew he could not. And I was very in the moment. And if you haven't seen, I'm just begging you, if you have not yet seen Paul Gross in anything, please look him up and watch all of his stuff. If you're looking for a good one to start with and you like Shakespeare, he did a 3-season show called Slings and Arrows. You can find it on Acorn if you're in the US, actually, I mean in Canada as well, but on Acorn. All 3 seasons are there. Rachel McAdams is in the first season, so
and Luke Kirby
and a whole bunch of fantastic actors. It is brilliantly done. We have been rewatching it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. But he's also great in Men with Brooms. If you want just a movie, it's a really fun one.
Very Canadian movie, like a very Canadian humor movie. Watch Men with Brooms. It's about curling, guys. Hey. That's my attempt at a Canadian accent. I am no better.
Well, so yeah, we didn't get to that episode, and since it was supposed to be a pop-up anyway, here, consider this our deep dive on that, because really we're here to talk about movies anyway. But Men with Brooms technically is in range because it's 2001, as Doc is reminding me, and that's still in the and today category of our movie reviews. So yeah, we can definitely add that one to the list if it's not there. It probably is there, but you know, we'll dive deep into it. But yeah, a little Canadian, because that's us, and you know, you're here for the ride. So skip that one if you don't like it, but you're crazy if you don't.
Well, thanks guys for hanging with us,
and we'll see you again next week. Bye everyone.